So that was like a ton of fun putting that tape together. So good evening, everyone. I'm David Bushman, television curator at the Paley Centre. It's my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's Salute to Homicide, Life on the Street, one of the most daring, innovative, and brilliant shows in the history, not just of the police procedural, but of any genre on television. A lot of people think the modern age of quality drama on television started with The Sopranos in 1999, but in truth, it goes back to the late 70s, when MTM, which had already reinvented the sitcom with shows like The Mary Tyler Moore Show and The Bob Newhart Show, pivoted toward drama, beginning with Lou Grant in 1977, which was followed soon after that by Stephen Bochco's Hill Street Blues and Bruce Paltrow's St. Elsewhere. A truly impressive array of talent emerged from that movement. People like David Milch, Mark Frost, Thomas Carter, John Falsey, Joshua Brand, Marshall Herskovitz, James Brooks, Gary David Goldberg, Joel Cerno, people who would then go on to create some of the most acclaimed shows in TV history, like including Deadwood, Twin Peaks, Northern Exposure, 30-something, 24, and so many others. Tom Fontana, who began his TV career writing for St. Elsewhere, also emerged from this school of television production and went on to executive produce the series we're here to honor tonight, Homicide, teaming up with the Oscar-winning director Barry Levinson, who had directed such films as Diner, Rain Man, Good Morning America, and who was in the vanguard of the theatrical film talent migrating to broadcast television as the networks embraced innovation in an attempt to ward off the encroachment of cable and other challengers. So Homicide, along with NYPD Blue and Law & Order, redefined the police procedural for the 90s, presenting sophisticated, artfully crafted stories that tackled complex issues and explored the psychological toll of police work with unprecedented depth and humanity, which was a far cry from antecedents like Hunter and Jake and the Fat Man. These three shows, Homicide among them, effectively blazed the trail for what many people today consider the golden age of TV. All of which is just an extremely long-winded way of saying how proud the Paley Centre is to be hosting this reunion tonight. First, major thanks to Haley Cameron in Tom Fontana's office, Caitlin Scott at PMK, Katie Jacobs, and Bob Solomon, who did an awesome job editing the tape you just saw. Finally, we encourage you to use your phones to take photos of our panel and share them on social media using the hashtag PaleyLive. Please, though, no photos of anything that appears on screen, which is actually too late now anyway, because it's over. No flash photography or video or audio recording. A special event like this deserves a special moderator, and we have a great one tonight. Please welcome the creator and executive producer of Power, Courtney Kemp.
In 1993, when this show came on the air, I was a junior in high school. And I started watching it with my parents. Never missed an episode. And then when I was reviewing for this show, for this tonight, I realized how much of it I'd stolen for my current show. So I'm kind of hoping that none of them notice. Anyway, I'm so honored to be here. So great to see you guys tonight. Thank you so much for loving this show as much as it deserves. Truly one of the greatest television series of all time. Without going on for, yes, exactly. I will just say that it was revolutionary in terms of its depiction of the lives of homicide cops, multiculturalism, diversity, women who actually showed up and gave a damn and weren't just in high heels teetering around. It is a revolution to this day. I am so grateful to be here. And without going on and on, I would like to bring you guys David Simon. David, of course, is the journalist whose book, Homicide, A Year in the Killing Streets, began this journey. I would also next like to bring on writer-producer Julie Martin. Next, also writer-producer Anya Epstein. A quick note about our next guest, Richard Belzer. Who has played Detective John Munch on various series for 22 years now. Honored to have him here tonight from France.
Pardon?
Merci. Merci beaucoup.
Yeah, I did fly in from France.
Yeah, exactly.
I did. Because I knew you were going to MC.
Thank you. I'd like to bring on actor, director, producer Clark Johnson. The inimitable Frank Pembleton, Andre Braugher. And now the man whose kindness brought me here tonight.
Kindness.
One of my heroes, Tom Fontana. And last but certainly not least, director, producer, genius, Barry Levinson. Okay. Oh, sorry. Great shoes.
Oh.
Wow.
Sorry for those of you who can't see his kicks. They're remarkable. Okay, so I'm going to start with David.
Can you make your legs a little shinier?
I'm black. It's baby oil.
Touché.
David, what brought you to write the book Homicide: A Year in the Killing Streets?
I'd been a police reporter for 4 years, I guess, and I'd covered all these murders piecemeal, 4 paragraphs at a time. And one of the things you had to do in Baltimore was go and hang with the detectives because otherwise they wouldn't answer your phone calls at 11:30 at night when they caught a murder. So I would spend some time up in their office, sort of shooting the breeze. And at some point in 1985, I went up there on Christmas Eve with a bottle to say, thanks for answering the phone, and because you had to deal with them every day. And I was bringing them a bottle of whiskey, and I ended up staying there for most of the shift, the midnight shift, which, of course, a lot of humor to Christmas Eve in the homicide unit. And I wrote a column about it, but I remember there was a detective. He died shortly thereafter, sadly. His name Bill Lanzi. He was a really great guy. And he said, Bill Lanzi.
Oh, Lanzi.
Yeah, different from Lanzi.
Yeah, okay.
But he said, if somebody got up here, and just for a year, they'd have a hell of a book. And he said it not to me, but to a couple other detectives. They were telling us, and that clicked. So I wrote a letter, and I said, will you let me into the unit as an observer for a year? And incredibly, they said yes. So it was a very simple process.
And they lived to regret it.
They did. Well, yeah, especially after you all got to town and made them famous for... No, actually, the city loved the less so with some things that followed, but you guys...
But the original title of the book was A Year in the Killing Streets.
That's right, which is on...
Made us change it, right?
That was David Mamet.
No. We had to change it because they thought it sounded too depressing.
Right.
So they changed it. It was life on the street, not death.
Oh, right.
No death.
Which would be more accurate. Yeah, exactly.
Even before then, I got a call, I think it was from Gail Mutrix, in your office saying, you guys wanted to drop just call it Homicide. And David Mamet had a movie come out about set in Baltimore called Homicide.
Uh-huh.
And I actually got on the phone like an idiot with David Mamet. I got him on the phone, and I was like, "Hi, I'm David Simon. I'm the police reporter at the Baltimore Sun."
You didn't reach puberty yet?
I'm doing it as it was heard by Mamet.
Right.
This is how it landed on him.
Nice recovery.
Anyway, I have a book called Homicide, and it's a funny thing, you got a movie called, and can we get the title, and could you just write like a little letter that says we can, and then the next thing I heard.
What did he say?
He said, this is not my problem. This is... Talk to the studio. Yeah. So then I called you back and said, I can't. And by then you were like, we've moved on. It's now life on the street. Don't worry.
And no one ever heard of that Mammoth Project again. Right?
It's a good movie.
And on that note,
Don't embarrass me.
Barry, how did you come to find the book?
It was sent to me to develop it as a feature. Mm-hmm. And when I was reading it, I thought, well, to condense it down, it would be better for it to play out as an episodic thing and just keep it going, because you're seeing the mechanics of how, the Homicide Squad functions, and that's where, it's before there were long forms, where you say still, this for, episodic television, it would be better served. And so I ended up, there's that lucky moment that you have in your career where I got 6 episodes that NBC agreed to do 6 episodes of whatever I wanted to do.
Remember that.
And no, they couldn't, if they saw the first episode, they didn't like what it was, they can just buy it all out. And so, and they had no control over the script or casting. And
It's
so
not like that now.
No. It was that one little window of time and then the key thing, which I had said, is it should be shot in Baltimore on the streets. Because I can't picture shooting in Baltimore and then go back and do everything in LA. It would lose some kind of authenticity. And they said, well, how can you do it? It's too expensive, which is how it led to shooting it with Super 16, which no network show had ever done Super 16. So those things happened in that odd way that we're able to do. And we did the 6, and then they ultimately picked it up from that point.
Then they did 3 more.
And then, but slowly but
9
surely, they kind of went, okay,
Right.
we're all right.
And then how did you get involved?
I got a phone call from my agent, which was a rare thing. And I had left LA and I was back in New York, and I was going to go to like Greece and write epic poems about Ulysses and things like that. Yeah. Well, you became my Ulysses. And I got a call, they're going to do this show in Baltimore. Barry Levinson, he wants to meet you to be the showrunner. And so I was like, oh, all right. And I went out to LA, and Barry and I, while he was shooting a feature, we sort of met off and on. Right. Yeah. And I don't know, you said, okay, this is the guy.
Yeah.
And that's how I have no idea what I said or why you chose that to go that way, but I'm glad he did.
Yeah. But I mean, the key to it is, Tom, had, I thought in the conversation, that had a sensibility of what we were going to go do, and I said to him, and the key thing is, you start with, there's no car chase, there's none of that, because you're starting with there's somebody is dead.
Yeah.
And that's the way the show has to unravel. So we're not in an action mode. We don't. It's not an action piece. It is trying to solve a crime, but it is a character piece of how does the squad function on a day in, day out basis when every day they're faced with the fact there's a homicide, there's a death, and how does that work? How do these characters think? How do they interact? What is the price they pay? And in that conversation, it sort of led to you saying, well, all right, I think this will work out.
I remember you said no car chases, no gun battles. And I said, that's impossible, I'll do it. The idea of a cop show with no gun battles and no car chase. We did have one car chase. with those awful little cars we had.
Cavaliers.
Cavaliers. This was the car chase. They pulled up to the curb and got out. That was the entire action sequence for that episode.
That was 41 takes.
Before I ask about the casting process, I actually wanted to ask Anya and Julie. So as the show went on, and you were in the writer's room, did that imprimatur stay, no car chases, no, was it, when you were breaking story, did things come up and you said, oh, no, it's not the show?
Yeah, I mean, I think we followed, and we came in a little bit later, and I came in the third season, and it was sort of, this is what the show is. This is guys talking about shit while they're trying to solve a murder, and it was like, which was incredible. I mean, because you could write a scene, people talking about how much they hated, Cheese Whiz or something, and then at the end of the scene, they got a call. It was a witness came forward, and it didn't have to be driven by the procedure. It didn't have to be driven by normal television, like something exciting had to be happening at every second. I mean, the challenge was to make those conversations about Cheese Whiz or cookies or parallel parking, the excitement of the show.
The closest the show came may have been an episode that was lucky enough to land with me, which was about bounty hunters. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Going down to Florida.
Yeah.
So that that stepped outside of the usual world of Baltimore and the show and these more character-driven conversations. But even so, I think we did it in our own Homicide way.
Mm-hmm. So tell me about the casting process. How did you find these actors?
It was, I can't remember all the things. I mean, Andre I had seen in a feature, and I thought he could be spectacular. I remember specifically that. I can't remember all of them. I think in the case...
Well, I remember the Belzer you heard on Howard Stern.
That's right. I was going to say
he was driving into, and he goes, "Hey, we should check out this guy Belzer."
Yeah, because I thought it would be interesting that you could have a character that you can play with, and who could be sort of off-center, and not a traditional. Not we always, you think of the detective as sort of, more buttoned down and together.
Stable.
Yeah, stable. And there'd be room to play around with that, and that came out. I think Clark...
Best available. Best available.
And I think I met with Clark, didn't I? We had
a few times.
Yeah, a few times to go over that.
Did
so
you read
it was
another part?
It was a guy with the toothpick from Hill Street Blues that you had in mind first.
No.
No,
Not Hill Street Blues. Yeah, wasn't it? The guy from Hill Street Blues that had the toothpick?
I don't think so.
You forget. I remember that shit.
So for you guys, for Richard and Clark and Andre, how did you feel when you read the script?
Pardon? No, I didn't hear you.
We didn't get a script. We got his book. We didn't get a script.
You didn't get a script?
We got his book. We got excerpts.
Oh, wow.
He didn't get a script. Cute story. I'll tell you a cute story about the script. I came to the set, and they couldn't let the script off the lot because of the mammoth thing. So either Tom or Barry or both of you said, just go in that room over there and study the script. Don't take it off the lot. So I went into this room, I closed the door, and I see a VCR player and a big monitor and a stack of VHS. Remember VHS?
What's a VHS?
A stack of VHS tapes. And on it said, munch, munch, munch. And there was all these auditions. And I said, holy shit. So I opened the door to the room like, spy versus spy, and look around, closed the door, and I started putting in these VHS. And the one thing that I learned, I won't tell you what name actors were terrible, but the thing that I noticed, and to your point earlier, Barry, about playing with the character, It was that no one had ever seen a cop do the kinds of stuff that Munch was allowed to do. And wasn't I based partially on Landsman?
Jay Landsman.
A real Baltimore homicide police guy. So I saw all these actors audition, and every one of them was playing it like steely-jawed and straight. And I just went nuts. I took my shoe off. I screamed at the guy. I said, "You don't like my hair?" And, and so Barry and Tom, I remember when I was reading for Barry, I caught Tom with this cute little ponytail in 19... They looked at each other like, shit, this guy can, right? Am I right? It was revelatory.
Wasn't it between him and Burt Reynolds? I thought it was like
I'll tell a very quick story. Because NBC had no casting approval, Linda, I forget her name.
Say that again slowly. Say that again very slowly.
The head of casting at NBC would call me and go, "Do you have anybody for such and such a part?" And I'd say, "Oh yeah, we signed so and so," and she'd go, "Okay, just remember, we need a real hunk. We need a real." I go, yeah. I'll remind Barry. So we've cast every part except Munch.
See the Burt Reynolds.
And I called Linda and I said, "Well, we hired a hunk."
Now, wasn't there? She said, "Who is it?" And you said, "Richard Belzer," and they're like dead silent.
Yeah.
And you said, "No, Barry wants him," and that's that's true, that part.
Yeah.
Thank you, Barry.
Mr. Braugher, what made you want to play Frank Pembleton?
Oh, that was harsh, man. That was some harsh shit. Wow.
Thanks. I didn't know who I didn't know who the players were. I didn't know their reputations, And Lou DiGiamo had a little office over on the west side where he was putting people on tape. And so you had excerpts from the script. And so I went over and I read, and then I think, which I thought was terrible, so terrible that I threw the sides in the garbage can. I was like, well, that's not my job. And then the next day, I get a call, Tom and, was it Tom and,
David.
I can't remember. Tom, I went in and I read with those guys, right. And part of it is I just couldn't believe that they were going to give, this is just the way I was thinking. It's just, I said, are they going to give a black man this role? Mm-hmm. And I said, I really got to play this. I got to play the hell out of it. If they are going to do this, you know what I mean? I really have to play the hell out of it, because for so many years it was like third sidekick from the left, you know? And I just said to myself, I'm gonna eat the Venetian blinds. I'm gonna tear the whole thing to shreds, you know what I mean? And so that's what I remember mostly about that time.
Can I just say one thing? No Frank Pembleton, no Barack Obama.
Oh. Wow.
Paved the way. He paved the way.
You hear that every day.
I will just say that for me, as a young black person watching the show, it was a revolution. It was a revolution to see that. And before diversity was a buzzword, before it was in vogue, before it was in fashion, before it was something that people did to save their ass and get their show on the air. Yeah. You all were doing it. Why? And I want to talk about Pembleton specifically, and then Girardello, of course.
Well, the truth of it is, we wanted to reflect Baltimore, and that there was no other way to do it,
Right. And David, when you were talking to them early on, were you saying, well, this person, when you look at these, were you not saying anything? Yeah?
No, I got to tell you, this show was, I joined the show later nailing boards in on something that was already a blueprint.
Sure.
And they had worked off the book, but they had created a whole universe that I remember when Tom gave me my first script assignment, I had other scripts in front of me, and the whole universe was fleshed out. But I can tell you, in regard to what you were just talking about, there was a moment, I think, in third or fourth, it was after I was on, where there was a scene, and it had Yaphet. It had 4 characters. It had you two guys, Yaphet, and it had Clayton LaBeouf.
Clayton.
And they were discussing they were just talking about the politics of a case, and race was not, there was no reference to race, but it had happened that because it went up the command staff, those 4 actors, 2 of them were working the case and 2 of them were dealing with it. They all happened to be African American, and it just passed like, without comment. I remember looking at it and thinking, something just happened here in a way that scarcely happens in network television. I thought that was a really quiet revolution.
And you went on to be a pioneer also in the casting of African Americans with The Wire and Treme.
It was easier because Homicide. I mean, Homicide. Nobody after them was going to depict the Baltimore that was not, 60% African American.
What about Yaphet Kotto as Al Giardello? Where did that come from? Oh yeah, let's take a minute. Let's have that moment. In preparation for tonight, I watched the TV movie that you all did. Oh. And I started crying again when he got shot. Even though it has been years and I'd seen it before. It still had the same, was that about Columbo, by the way? Was that Joe Columbo that you guys used as the killing with the cameraman, the black cameraman?
Oh,
Because
I don't know. Was it?
Because that's how Joe Columbo was killed at the Italian American rally. So it was that.
Oh, no.
No, okay.
He wishes it was, but it wasn't.
Okay.
I don't remember. Isn't that funny?
See, one of the interesting things about doing the show, where it's not, the whole season is not laid out, and so we're doing, we're shooting and we're still writing. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that happened, it was early on, there was a scene when Andre was in the box and he was talking, he's interrogating someone. It was a little scene, and Andre was just, I thought, remarkable. And I said to Tom, wow, wouldn't it be great? Let's just do a whole episode in the box. The whole episode will be in the box, and that's it. We don't make it part of. That's the show, mm-hmm. and just let these 3 actors just carry the day. And then Tom went and wrote that. And so we were able to see the characters and how we can tweak and change and expand and do all that, as opposed to, well, this is the way the season, it's all laid out, it's all done, as opposed to you can find and discover, see where the strengths are, how we can say, well, how about if we do this and that? And that episode was, I remember at the time, the network was like, what do you mean? It's all in a room?
The ultimate bottle episode of television.
Holy God, what is wrong with you guys? What's happening here?
For those of you who don't remember, it's 3 Men and Adina that Barry is referring to. The Emmy-winning 3 Men and Adina, which is one of my favorite episodes of television of all time, and an episode that I made my entire writing staff sit and study so that we could write episode 205 of Power. Which takes place mostly in the box, and they had not seen it because they were millennial, and so I said, "Sit and learn, sit and learn." So, can you talk a little more about that?
Just another episode that first year that we did, based on a conversation that Barry and I were having, was could you do an episode called Homicide in which there isn't a homicide?
Yeah.
And Frank Pugliese wrote, I think it was his first television script, if I'm not mistaken. He's now doing House of Cards. Yeah. It was like one of those, it was like, there'll be no car chases or gun battles, that's impossible. Well, can you do a homicide series called Homicide without a homicide? No, that's impossible. And so, of course, we tried to do it. And that was the great fun thing about writing the show, I would say, was we could play. You wrote that episode with the hat with Lily
Tomlin in the back of the car.
I mean, you could just go like, I don't know, let's go to a subway and shoot there and see what happens, So it gave us great freedom as writers. And when you have a great cast, that also gives you the courage to try.
Because it stimulates, because the actors, you can see certain things. You say, whoa, we can do this and we can do and see where we are going to go. So it's not like it's all defined in advance. And that first year told us a lot. So as it's going along, episodes popped up to that we could explore that in a different way.
Which leads me, of course, to ask for favorite episodes.
That's hard. I mean, the subway was a really terrific one.
And if you haven't seen the PBS documentary about the making of that episode and you have an interest in how television happens, I would suggest you see it. But I really have to tell you, Jim Yoshimura, who's in Chicago, he was watching Taxi Cab Confessions, which, you know, was like the dirty HBO pleasure back in the day. And he came in and he said, did you see that last night? And I was like, no, I didn't see it. And he was like, and he talked about this woman who got in a cab and whose husband, I think it was killed in a subway. Same circumstances that we ended up using. And he said, and it takes 42 minutes for the person to die, which was the length of an episode. So I was like, okay, yeah, let's go for it. But what the other thing he said, which really, really affected me, was, because we had done, I don't know how many episodes by that point, he said, let's do this episode because it could be the first time a homicide detective has interviewed the murder victim.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that just blew my mind, the possibility of that.
Yeah.
And the subway was just built. That was like there was nobody riding that.
We still only have one line. Of subway involved.
Well, we pretty much put an end to people wanting to ride.
I'm going to add something because it remarks on somebody who's not here. The line producer who trained us all in have a conscience, budgeting, and responsibility.
Finnerty?
Jimmy Finnerty is not here.
My impression of Finnerty.
Other side.
Oh, the other
Watch
side.
Inside Out.
Conscience.
Jimmy Finnerty, I mean, this show was shot for exactly the amount of money it needed to be shot for, and maybe a little bit less, based on the quality of your catering. I'll say no more. But Jim, I remember I was like the junior guy under Yash for that episode, and I remember following him into the office where Yash was saying, I need a subway car, I need a platform, I need the whole, and he was asking for this. And in one of the greatest Jimmy Finnerty moments, his office was right outside, it was on the piers, right near where we played for the Homicide, and he had a window that looked right where the Moran tugboats would pull up against the pier. And he's sort of pricing, he's got the locations manager there, he's pricing out what it's going to cost us to rent the whole Baltimore subway and shut it down. And he's looking at these prices, and he looks up and he sees a tugboat coming in against the dock. And deadpan, he says to Yoshimura, he says, couldn't it be that he's caught between a tugboat? And that's how you make network television for what it costs to make network television. And maybe not even that, That's a true story, but Finnerty's name had to be spoken.
Do you have a favorite episode?
I like the early episodes, because we became more deadly as the seasons went on. You know what I mean? There's more deadly action from the detectives, but. Smoke gets in your eye, in which all of us are trying to stop smoking, in the car, and nothing happens except that we're trying to stop smoking. It's one of my favorite episodes. So,
absolutely.
And you were trying to quit smoking.
Oh, yeah.
You and Melissa.
Me and Melissa, yeah.
So we put the two of them in a car. And Danny and Clark were you were still smoking.
I didn't smoke.
Well, you didn't smoke?
He's on smoke.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, who knows?
Clark, favorite episode?
God, hot seat. I don't know. I really can't say.
Okay.
I just like the whole group. And like Andre said, the earlier stuff, it was such a period of discovery. I just was doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't even seen them all, so
You're full of shit.
I haven't.
You're full of shit.
Shh, don't tell me.
Richard?
My favorite episode was the very first one because to introduce so many characters in one episode, each one had a moment, and each one, I think, was remarkably clearly defined. And you know, we have 43 minutes and 30 seconds, and you got these guys, and you got Yaphet, and you got Melissa, and Danny, and
Ned.
Ned, and I just thought it was magnificent. And I think it's the greatest, it may be the greatest dramatic pilot ever. It's right up there with Bilko.
I'd put the season 1 cast.
No, the Bilko pilot was the best sitcom, and this is the best drama. We're in the fucking Paley Centre. This is history. Jesus Christ.
Anya, Julie, any favorite episodes?
Well, I think I absolutely have to say the one in which I met my husband. So he came down to Baltimore and in my eyes gave what was the greatest performance of all time on the show. No offense to the rest of you.
Anya is married to the actor Dan Futterman, actor, producer, writer.
Now mostly a writer. Yes,
yeah,
that's
mostly
right.
a writer. Who I just met, actually, separately. Julie?
I have to say, I think one that David and I did together, Shades of Grey.
Oh,
it was unusual.
50 Shades of Grey?
It was unusual for.
We missed the check by that much. We left off the 50, Dan.
I mean, it was a rip from the headlines, which was not the usual homicide style, but it was.
Turned out really well.
But it was based on a real story in Baltimore where a bus driver accidentally, a white bus driver accidentally killed a black pedestrian, and the bus. Everyone on the bus came out and attacked the driver, and it was sort of it was out of the Baltimore Sun.
Race sort of exploded in Northwest Baltimore.
Exploded in Northwest Baltimore over someone stepped out onto the street, and the repercussions from that and how it affected everyone.
I actually remember, like 3-4 days into shooting, I think you looked at me and said, "This is turning out really good."
Aside from the fact that the actor, that a Jim Finnerty story, with the actor we hired to play the bus driver, who was, he had to act. He had to kill someone and act and be interviewed, but he also had to drive a bus. So, apparently those two things are
you all know
not
the standard joke is you ask an actor, "Can you ride a horse? Can you drive a bus? Can you whatever you say, they're going to say yes. They want the job." So I got a Class E license. I've driven many a bus. I've driven semi.
Do you remember when we had the motorcycle gang on, the leader of the gang couldn't ride a motorcycle?
Right. They always say yes, but yes. So 11. I thought it was sideswiped cars. Jimmy looking at the bill.
You and I were like, no, this guy really can. It says right here on his resume, he can drive a bus.
He swore he had a Class C license.
So we had a lot of
one of the fun. You remember? I don't remember the episode, but it's where the episode in real life came together because we were shooting the scene. And somebody either robbed a store or whatever, and the police were chasing him, and he basically gave himself up to the homicide squad that we were shooting.
They showed
Me and Clark.
the thing we did.
Tom, I'm talking. Me and Clark and I were.
Apologize,
I'm
Graham.
sorry. I'm sorry. Well, you son of a. I'll be over there in 5 minutes. You better not be there. No, but God, I'm sorry, Tom. No, we were shooting in an alleyway, Clark and I, and this guy comes around the corner running with a bag in his hand. He sees Clark, he sees me, and he looks around and he goes, "Oh, shit," and he,
No, he goes, "Oh, shit, Munch, and the other guy."
Oh, and the other Now, the guy had robbed a convenience store, and finally, after a few minutes, a real security guard came around the corner and grabbed the guy. So I wanted to find out what did the guy rob? And he robbed, you ready? You're sitting down? He robbed Q-tips and film. I said, what does he do, take pictures of himself cleaning his ears? The weirdest theft I've ever heard.
This is where the fact that an ex-newspaper reporter is on set really helps you with your sort of publicity, because I immediately got on the phone and called the AP Bureau and said, I got a bright for you. This is going to make the A-wire. And it did. I mean,
We were on the Today Show because of
right.
That was the most publicity.
I mean,
entire
it writes
series.
itself, as they say. I mean, that was great.
People. Oh,
And then you played yourself when we recreated it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, thanks for using me in that scene, by the way.
Yeah, we recreated
weren't available.
this next season. Right?
they just showed you in the clip tape.
Oh, really?
Yeah. People look back at Homicide now as, celebrated. But you guys had a pretty bumpy ride with the network.
Oh, sure.
Pretty much the whole time you had this sort of Damocles over
All
your
the
head.
time.
Yeah. How was that? And how did that affect everyone? Not just you all, but the actors, and how did that affect everybody?
Well, I just remember having a conversation with Warren Littlefield, who was president of NBC at the time, and he said, Tom, every week, another young black kid gets killed. And I said, well, Warren, it's Baltimore. I said, did you read the book? And he goes, no, I read the coverage. And I was like, well, what do you want? He goes, well, don't rich people get killed in Baltimore? And I go, there aren't many tiaras in Baltimore. So he was constantly disappointed in us.
But I remember the first time he said something to you, you said to him, he said, can't there be like more life-affirming? And you said, Warren, the name of the show is Homicide.
Yeah.
There was, it never, we ran 7 years, but it never, stopped. They were always like, can't you do this? Can't we do that? And I remember some meeting with,
Oh, God.
what was his name? Dan.
Don Ohlmeyer, and Warren Littlefield.
Yeah, we had, so we had a lot of things, but, we experimented and tried and did all those things, but they were always trying to put us into a box that we couldn't work in. We couldn't be that conventional. We weren't designed that way. Mm-hmm. And if you go back to, what David wrote originally, that is, in a sense, the Bible, and we're going to work inside of that.
Sure.
And so we couldn't, so we'd end up with no.
They always
What
wanted
about
something they
no?
could promote. They always wanted they said, well, the ratings are low because we don't have anything that our promotions department can sell in the promo, so they can't blow somebody up or.
Yeah.
That's right. The one episode that they really promoted was the one when we had the shooting.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they just now we got something to cut together for a TV spot.
Were there any notes that you took that you regretted?
What?
Yes.
Asking Melissa Leo to wear more makeup.
No, but we didn't do that. We didn't do that. No, I would say we did up the color.
Okay.
Because they thought the first season was too washed out.
Oh.
What do they know?
Well, yeah.
So we added more color?
Well, we made it a
I
little.
can't remember anymore.
Yeah.
But you didn't regret that. Did you regret doing that?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Because when I see the first season, I go, oh, that's the look.
Right.
And then
Okay,
later
so
it was
washed
like, maybe not this
It was sort of
season.
classic.
Classic. It was like almost black and white.
Yeah, it's almost, so desaturated.
Yeah. They hated the jump cutting.
But you kept that.
Well, we kept that.
Yeah.
They hated the only using a handheld camera. They hated that.
Oh, I admit I've stolen that for whole episodes. I apologize.
Oh, also, there was the note about where are the victories.
Yeah.
We were getting that one all the way through the end.
Yeah.
Really?
can
Where
we
are the victories?
Because we didn't always
Solve
catch.
things.
Yeah.
Right, but that's real. That
Yeah.
was the reality of the book and of the truth.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, we were opposite Nash Bridges by that point. They weren't looking for real.
the classic Nash Bridges that elevated the medium. So, question. Okay, so what made you decide to do the stroke story with Frank?
Well, I'll tell you. Every year before we'd start writing, I would meet with the actors and say, "Hey, is there something you haven't done?" And so,
Never met with me.
yeah, I said the actors.
Oh.
And hold No, he knows I love him. He knows I love him. And Andre said, and I'm going to put words in your mouth, you know, I'm really tired of being in the box and always, you know, being
God.
being the best. He said, I wish there was a way in which we could do it so that I wasn't always the best. Or words to that effect. And I went off and thought about it, and I remember I called you and I said, what if we give Pemberton a stroke? But it's the whole season, because rather than do what they would mostly do on TV, which is you have a stroke and the next week you're pitching for the Yankees. And I said, so we'll play it. We'll take the most articulate character we have and make him unable to speak and want to be back in the box, one place he can't be now. And you said, let me talk to Amy. And then I got a call and said, you would do it. So we did it. And we researched it because we really wanted to do the effect of a stroke as honestly as we possibly could.
What'd you say to him, Amy? Amy, what'd you say to him?
So how was it to play?
It was great. I mean, Tom's telling the story. At the end of the 4th year, we were retelling stories that we had told before. The husband and wife, you know, between Pemberton and Bayliss, we were starting to retell the same stories. And I just, you know, and Jean de Gonzac is like, well, you know, they want McDonald's. You have to give them the Big Mac. And I just said, I'm tired of Big Macs. I want something else.
Filet of fish, something.
Filet of fish. And so my whole thing was, as an actor, to grow, you need a real challenge. You know what I mean? So that was the summer that I went to play Henry V in the park, and I went to I guess it was the rehabilitation center over on the east side, Rusk maybe. Is it Rusk? Yeah. And looking for role models, you know, and I found some role models, and that was really the thing that goosed me along the way, because I found all of the stuff necessary to have a really long arc, you know. The marriage is failing. He's not the best. He wants to be the best, and he'll do anything to return to that form, you know. And I remember we had one episode in particular about the fact that Frank was ignoring Mary's needs in order to get back there. And I just said, so rarely do we see characters who articulate the fact that what they do is more important than their marriage, you know, which hadn't been articulated on television. Like, I'm not going to do that because that's not as important as standing around a dead body in the middle of the night bullshitting with my pals, right? Because what we do is important, and that's not, you know what I mean? And so I felt like it was just important to do that, and the relationship between Pemberton and Bayliss changed, you know, substantially, and I just thought all of that stuff was so much more fun to play than, you know.
Yeah.
So that was, you know, Tom says, how about I give you a stroke? And I'm like, as long as there's no spunky therapist, you know, who I come to love, you know what I mean, and all these other different things. He says, no, we're going to skip over the rehab entirely. We're going to bring you back to the squad room changed, you know? So I said, great. So it turned out to be really a godsend, because all these muscles got stretched in a way that I never dreamt. I didn't know that I had this stuff, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we all enjoyed watching that, for sure. Yeah. In the 3.5 minutes that we have left before we open it to questions, what are you all proudest of?
3.5 minutes.
I think the authentic. Are you going to say something? No. I'll speak for you. I think that you have every right to be very proud, because when I was working on the show, I would go out on the road to do stand-up, and cops would come to the show, you know, whether I was in Milwaukee or South Carolina or wherever, and many of them felt that that they owed us a debt of gratitude for being so authentic and so realistic. And a few of them said, yeah, we have a Munch in our squadron, or we have a Pemberton in our, so that to me was rare in television, where you could create drama to such a degree that the audience feels so connected to it and so real. I mean, I don't remember anything before Homicide that was anywhere near that.
One of the things that, for me, was that Baltimore was a principal character in the story.
Right.
And as much as any of us actors, and it was well represented by these guys. And that's what I'm most proud of, that they got that city. It's not like NYPD where they shoot under the 10 freeway and pretend they're the 59th Street Bridge. So we do that. But that's... But you do it for laughs. We do. You do it for laughs. So that was, and Baltimore, as a testament to these guys who are from there, we really got to say this is the town.
Yeah. Absolutely. What are you proudest of, Barry?
I'm not sure, but in it there are two things which are aside from. One is that we because of the show, we built a real film community around it, and we brought a lot of people into the process that had never been involved in it. So we developed a lot of people in various departments, in that regard, which was terrific. And we brought in, I can't even remember how many new directors in the course of the show, that have gone on from it. So it was like almost a learning experience or training ground. But the film community really expanded out until Baltimore got rid of tax incentives and whatever, and then literally they lost the entire base that we had developed over those years.
Clark directed an episode, and obviously now is a great director, but because of you guys giving him the shot, very proud of Clark Johnson.
Tom, proudest?
Oh man, I think from I've been so blessed in my whole career, but Homicide was special for me because we got to do things that we got to break all of the rules and still have a lot of fun. I don't know. It was like a joy, It was a joy just to do it. So I don't know if that's pride, but joy is, I don't know.
Joy is pretty good.
I came on full time in season 4, and I was with Anya. We were sort of the below. We were story editors below Julie and Yash and below Tom and Barry. And Tom said something to me when I was sort of like figuring out what to do. My newspaper was not. He was just like, "I'll teach you how to do this." And I didn't even know what he was saying at the time, because I thought, like, I didn't know what a camera lens was. And I certainly, I remember the second day on set, I was like, why is the guy turning a knob next to the camera? What's the point? Wait, the guy who's looking through the lens doesn't make it focus? You guys are doing it backwards. I mean, I knew nothing. And slowly over the course of those seasons, I didn't even realize it was happening. But I was like, because I was making classic mistakes, one after the other, hilarious mistakes, telling actors, that, I wrote that line for him, but can you take it?
Boy.
Disastrous. Yeah. I mean, or writing, like I'm writing for a detective that I have, I'm writing for a guy in my memory who's actually a detective, and I hand the line to Andre. I still remember the moment, which is I gave you a line where in Baltimore vernacular, they'd say, we tried up his mama's house, meaning like we kicked in the door of the suspect's mother's house, but he wasn't there. So I gave you, he tried up his mama. And you looked at Mama, and he was like, did you write this line for me, for my character? Do you remember this?
No, I'm fascinated.
You were like going, because I think I would say mother. I think, and I was really going like, and I couldn't bring myself to go, I really didn't give it the thought it deserved. I couldn't vocalize that. And I said, I'll change it. And you went, no, I'll make it work. Yeah. And then you went behind the camera, and he went the other way. It was like the lesson of all time. I never like, he went, I tried up his mama's house. after the take, he gave me like a little look over. He went like that, and I was like, I got it. All the characters are different, and they speak differently, and oh shit. But it was like that with everything. It was really a school of, you sent us to casting only when we were ready. We were allowed to come to editing when we were ready, but we were allowed to do all those things. It was really an incredible university of learning.
I have to. Oh, sorry.
No.
Oh, I have to turn to Q&A now from our audience. But I will say thank you, David, for saying that, because you all taught me and many other people like me from watching and from seeing female names with producers attached. I could do it.
Oh.
We could all do it. We have been instructed that only people who have a microphone will be allowed to speak. Put your hands up really high so that the people with microphones can find you. There's one right next to you, sir.
Hi, I wanted to ask about a couple of actors who were on the show who are no longer with us. John Polito, I read interviews with him after he left the show where he said he was mad that he got killed off, and then I read interviews with him later where he said he kind of apologized and realized it was a mistake, and I was just wondering what that experience was like for you, particularly Tom, and then Robin Williams.
I never speak ill of the dead. My memory of John is very positive, and I'll tell you why. Because when we decided to do the 2-hour movie, everybody came back and wanted to come back and was back full on doing the show, John included. And so I will not say why, what happened, but I'm glad we all made peace.
It's not my dog.
I wanted to ask about the Robin Williams episode, Barry. I know you had worked with him, and he came on and did the show a big favor by guesting in that episode. And do you attribute him really helping to save the show by coming on when he did?
Yes, I mean, Robin was really an amazing, terrific person. And it was early on, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was second of...
But whenever it was that. So his name did mean something, and if we could find, and I had said something, if we can find something that works for the show, that will work for you. And he said, no, when you think you have something, I'll definitely do it. And that was the way Robin was. So we had an episode that made sense, and he came in, and he was terrific. But he was very helpful to us, and he got the network excited, like, oh, we got a name, so that'll be good.
Barry, a friend of mine saw that episode, and he said, hey, I saw you on that Robin Williams cop show.
Right there. Right there.
First of all, shameless plug. There is a podcast called From Red to Black in which two gentlemen watch an episode before and then discuss the entire episode.
Cool.
It's on iTunes.
Of our show?
About Homicide.
Oh, wow.
So anyone interested, please tune in.
Sit down.
But Andre, my question... Andre, my question is for you. At what point did you realize that you had a role of a lifetime and that this was a special show?
It crept up on me, but I'd have to say somewhere in the middle of the first season, I just said to myself, all of these episodes are about different things, right? And so I'm like, when are we going to come around to what the show's really about? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And it became clear to me. We just had a cast of misfits. You know what I mean? So, yeah. And I just said to myself, I've never seen a show like this. Every aspect of it was just like an affront to network television. So I just said, right, I think we're on a really, really special show, you know what I mean? And we would go and do these crazy episodes, and then the second year we only did 4, because I think you got somebody drunk who...
I did. I got Don Ohlmeyer drunk.
Yeah. Who gave us 4 episodes, and which gave us that, you know, that bridge back to the 3rd season. But it became clear to me that there was nothing conventional about this show. Early on, when we were still doing doing the first episodes, Tom had made a rough cut of the first episode, and I don't remember if you guys ever saw that. It was, strangely enough, the funniest episode I had ever seen in my entire life. At that point, I felt like these guys were almost like, I don't know if you remember that cut, but they were almost like superheroes. Like the writing on the board was, you know, was fast and aggressive, and the way that Belzer destroyed the guy with the haircut was, you know, was just so superb. But the show of course couldn't be sustained as superheroes who slashed up, you know, the villains. But I have to say, that was the moment in which, sitting in that conference room with John Polito next to me, all of us laughing our asses off, where I just said to myself, there's nothing like this. There's nothing like this on television.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Got 2 down the front.
I remember that night when we saw that. We're going, wow.
Yeah, I know.
It's like, wow.
First off, let me just say thank you to all of you just for an amazing show and experience. We just love it. I had a question for Richard. Munch has been on, I think, has the record for the most number of different TV shows. Is there a television universe that you would like to see Munch make an appearance on?
Oh, you want me to write him into power? Can we shoot you? No.
I quit at 10. No, I don't know. I mean, it's a question that would require me to be immodest. And as my family can tell you, I'm very modest.
If you're curious, everyone, it's Homicide, Law & Order SVU, Law & Order Trial by Jury, The X-Files, MONY, Sesame Street, Arrested Development, 30 Rock, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, and The Wire. And I have one that I
There's
wrote.
one more.
Yeah, I can't read
Tom,
what I
what was
wrote.
the thing we did about the mayor?
No, she said that one.
Oh, the beat.
That's the beat.
was
The
the other
beat.
one.
Yes.
Beat.
So that's the exhaustive list. I decided not to bore you all with the long introductions I wrote for everyone, but that was the list.
So Belzer's buying after for
There's one right here, sir. If you could just come down with the microphone.
Thank you again for coming. This has been fascinating. This was one of the first shows I remember that had a large cast that seemed to be able to handle cast changes, and the stories were still interesting. So I'm just curious, is that a tough process behind the scenes? And as actors on the show, when you're dealing with new and different characters, how do you integrate it? Because it seems so natural watching it, like, oh, these people have been working together for years, even though they were a new character in a particular season.
That's a testament to the writing. So if someone came in new to the set, to the show, we were, I think that you guys agree with me, that we were always very nice to guest stars. And that got around, so we started getting more and more guest stars because it was a cool place to work. So if someone new came in, again, if they seemed like they'd been there a long time, and that was their first, few episodes. So that's Barry and David, and I mean not Barry. Barry can't write it. Fucking but Tom and David.
And Julie.
And Julie. And
Jorge,
Anya.
Josh,
and Josh. And the episode I wrote.
Eric Overmyer hasn't been mentioned.
Oh, Eric Overmyer.
Right.
Henry Brummel.
Yeah.
Henry Brummel.
I think we have time for one more. Right, excuse me, miss. Right behind you.
Thank you again for being here. I lived in Baltimore from 91 to 97, so it was a perfect time to be watching Homicide. In retrospect, are there any characters or actors that you felt for whatever reason, you couldn't get as much of or as much out of as looking back on it that perhaps you would now if you were doing the same exact show with the same exact characters? Does that make sense?
You mean in terms of the journey of the journey of a character?
Yeah, where you felt like the characters, looking back, you could have done more with them.
Oh.
What?
I don't know.
No, I don't.
I don't know.
No, a cast of midgets maybe, but...
So you feel like you left anything on the table?
Yeah, no, I don't think we did. No, but I mean in terms of maybe I'm not understanding the question. Where the character would go. Right. Yeah, I think we fulfilled all the characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think
Munch got married.
Thank you, Dan. I mean, the other thing Barry and I talked about, seeing that first scene with Kyle Secor and Andre in the box, was that Andre's character would do anything at that point to get somebody to confess, and Kyle's character Bayless was like, no, you can't do that. It's there's Miranda rights and there's all these, we have to respect the. And the one thing Barry and I talked about early on was that over the course of the series, the two of them would change places, and so that was the main journey that I was focused on over the course of the life of the series.
We do have time for one more. Way in the back there.
Uh-oh.
You mentioned shooting with handheld cameras. I'm wondering, was that something for the actors? Was that kind of a different thing for you to play? Because you have the camera going all over.
It was liberating. It was liberating. At first, it was distracting. You're used to setups. And then it became liberating. And for me, it kind of felt like that was the journalist that had the mic in her face.
It was like another character, having the cameraman there. And some of the scenes there would be no cuts. It would just go from one person to another.
All of a sudden, you find yourself on camera. What the fuck?
No, but Barry's was influenced by Cops, by Jean-Luc Godard. I mean, the best elements of the film world.
I mean, I think what it did is it made the actors, you had to constantly be on in a way because you never knew exactly where the camera would be. Yeah. And so we didn't just shoot, say Andre replying to some other actor. It would be a continuous scene. We would shoot the whole scene in one, and the camera would just do it. And if we did it again, we would do the scene, and then the camera is going to do certain things it didn't do before. And that's the way we sort of would deal with each sequence. So you had to be on, and then there may be certain variations or changes that might happen in the course of doing it one time after another. And then if you wanted to embellish on that, you may do another and say, well, let's focus a little bit more on Andre here around these particular lines. And that's the way it was sort of put together. So it was always sort of continuous, almost like sort of doing a scene from a play in a way, that you're not just simply doing a pickup shot. So I think it created a certain kind of participation, and you needed to be really listening and responding because you never knew exactly when that camera's coming to you. So I think it worked out, I think, for actors. I think it helped in terms of what the writing was. And there was an efficiency to it in a way because we were able to shoot, as it turns out, faster. And therefore we're able to be more economical in what we were doing cost-wise because we were on location rather than being back there. And we were talking earlier, when I always thought about it as a kid, I used to love the show Naked City, which was all shot on the streets of New York. And I thought, gee, to be able to do on the streets of Baltimore and really be there and not on a set somewhere in L.A. And at the same time, if you think of Godard, as he mentioned, is that there's a raggedness. And then the raggedness had to be designed as to how you create the raggedness for it. So that became part of its style. And then as all the different directors came in, they had to get used to how it was going to be done. So the cameraman initially had to help the directors about how we're going to approach it. And then we needed to bring in a certain staff of editors that could understand the jump cut quality, because the jump cut, in a sense, became our action. You know, because we don't have fist fights and things. So there's a raggedness that makes you sort of get to stare at it and get involved like you might miss something. And that was sort of its design.
And I cut my teeth as a director on that show. And the first time I left campus, I think was Femme Nikita, which is a very studied, like set-up-y, and they never asked me back.
Oh. That's true. We were spoiled. We were spoiled. Because I got to say, the first time that I watched them stand around and try to rig a car for a driving shot, you know, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, right. They're still setting up there. And I'm going like, why don't you put the goddamn camera in the back seat, shoot over their shoulders, and you get them, you get the Cavalier, we're done, you know? It was like we were spoiled by you guys.
Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. So we thank our distinguished